Video games. For half a century, there's been no other form of entertainment that's evolved and dominated quite like it. With 9 console generations, the advent of playing games online, mobile gaming, and even more recently, the VR market becoming mainstream, it seems that there's no better time than now to be a gamer. Well, actually, you may feel that something is missing. As if in the last 10 years, certain gaming elements have been forgotten in present-day titles. Maybe you've noticed this a little, maybe a lot, or not at all, but either way, we'll be looking into the top 5 missing features in modern gaming. For this video, we'll be looking into the aspects of gaming that have either been on a decline or have downright vanished that players yearn to make a return. These could range from in-game mechanics to basic features or content found beyond the disc. With all that, why don't we dive right in? Starting off our list, we have game demos. Back in the early 90s, it was common practice for studios to make a free playable portion of their upcoming game. This was done to give players a taste of what they can expect from the full product and entice them to buy it once it was released. See, these were simpler times. Instead of relying on online reviews and videos to determine whether or not to buy a new game, you had the opportunity to get a hands-on impression to come up with your own opinion. Though demos did have their limited reach initially, only being offered with magazine subscriptions, sometimes included with a box of cereal, a bonus feature on a DVD, and finally being displayed and offered in game stores.
Go ahead, take it.
But eventually, demos could be downloaded directly to your console through services like the Sega Channel or PSN and Xbox Live. Now typically, the gameplay for these demos would consist of either a few playable missions, a limited section of the multiplayer, maybe a preview of a single feature, or they'd give you full reigns under a time limit. But what made demos truly special is that players were able to try out new games they may have not considered playing and wind up discovering a new franchise that they love. Nowadays, however, it's becoming exceedingly rare for studios to make demos. With how complex modern games are becoming to develop and the all-important first impression, it does make sense for a studio to dedicate their efforts on the full product rather than releasing a demo that could be missing essential polish to keep gamers hooked. Hell, we're lucky if games are even released with polish these days.
Gonna let me go, right?
And on top of that, it's been proven that the modern gaming audience is more inclined to buy a game if they're constantly teased rather than being able to experience a portion of the game early. So from a marketing standpoint, it's understandable why demos are less common, but as gamers, you can't help but feel they've been taken too swiftly. Sure, demos haven't fully vanished yet, and it can be argued that public betas have taken their place, but they're far less frequent, cover less genres, and only last a couple weeks. But you never know. Time could always change and demos can make a resurgence. I just know I'll be ready for whenever that day comes. Now, I could probably make a separate video on the state of physical game copies and their rapid decline, but for now, I want to focus more on a simple but underrated aspect of the medium: manuals. Prior to all gaming knowledge being only a few clicks away, gamers would rely on that little book included with their new game to get a competitive edge. Manuals would have your basic info such as controls, gameplay mechanics, character and item descriptions, and a short synopsis for the story. Though these booklets didn't just provide key information, they were also a unique way to dip your toe into the world you're about to explore. As one example, let's look at one of my all-time favorite manuals for the game Saints Row 1. You can see the developers put in the extra effort by stylizing the guidebook in the form of a police dossier. There's even fake coffee stains, taped in newspaper articles, and in-game advertisements. But not just that, they went a step further by foreshadowing events that happen within the story. All these little additions help to enrich the game's universe ahead of even putting in the disc. But of course, this is just one developer's creative choice for their manual. There are countless other methods for how studios portrayed their style, story, and personality onto the printed page. Although sometime in the late 2010s, manuals seem to have completely disappeared. It started out slow, black and white print, less pages, a little piece of paper telling you where to read the manual online, to physically nothing being included in the game case. Or sometimes, something even worse. Now, there is an argument to be made that companies stopped making physical manuals in order to save on trees, but come on, we all know the internet became their excuse to cut on expenses. And really, it's just a shame. All the magic of physically holding a manual and admiring its artistry will always trump looking at a screen. Newer generations will never have the experience that manuals provided. Whether it was reading a copy at your friend's house, reading a fresh manual on the way home from the store, or being so enthralled with a new video game that you'd read the manual on the toilet. No? That was just me? Okay, forget that last one. But in any case, manuals may be gone, but their nostalgic effect won't be forgotten. Coming in at number 3, we have bonus features and menu extras. Popularized in the 90s, extras would consist of bonus material normally unlocked by playing through the story. The most common extra was typically a behind-the-scenes look at the game, like a making-of special, concept art, and storyboards. It was a special way to gain hindsight on the game's production, and it was always especially fascinating to compare the game's earlier builds and gameplay to the final product. But in case that isn't up your alley, extras also offered content that directly affected the gameplay. These could be bonus items, modifiers, skins, new playable characters, and even alternative game modes and story missions. Though what I personally found to be most memorable when it came to extras is when a studio would go through the extra trouble of just adding off-the-wall goofy content. Like Destroy All Humans 2. Tell me of another instance where a game's protagonist electrocutes and anal probes its devs. I could honestly go on, but that's not why we're here. Roughly in the late 2010s, there was a noticeable decline in games which offered extras. And for those few titles that still had them, the content was becoming significantly lackluster. There's likely numerous reasons for the plunge in extras, but if I had to guess, I'm sure it simply comes down to money. For behind-the-scenes media, why spend resources on making an additional menu when nowadays you can share all the content you want online and likely even widen its audience? But even then, how many companies share the same amount of exclusive content that you would normally see included on the game itself? But I'll admit, some companies have attempted to keep classic menu extras alive, but they're few and far between, or even worse, actually require you to buy them. What kind of BS studio came up with that? Did I say BS? I meant ingenious player-friendly marketing technique. Call me Randy. Let me ask you something. As a kid, what was a gameplay feature you found yourself toying around with more than any other? Well, besides possibly your number one spot, it was most likely cheat codes. Not to be mistaken with hacks or glitches, cheat codes are modifiers programmed by the developers to provide a variety of unique ways to break the rules of their games. Initially, cheats were designed to help players progress through the game's campaign, whether it was more lives or being able to skip to specific levels. A notorious example is the Konami code that was popularized in the 1986 NES title Contra. Players who would enter up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start at the main menu would begin the game with an additional 27 lives, totaling 30. In the years to come, especially in the 2000s, studios would get more creative with their cheats and their game-altering effects. Whether it was additional advantages like infinite health, ammo, and cash, codes to spawn items and unlockable upgrades early, or completely off-the-wall options that bend the game's reality to your will. Rockstar's 3D Grand Theft Auto trilogy is the perfect illustration for just how entertaining cheats could be. Who could forget such classics like equipping all weapons, spawning any vehicle, pedestrian riots, jetpacks, and of course the infamous flying cars cheat. And I can't discuss game cheats without mentioning those from the older Saints Row titles. The cheats here were able to provide untold hours of the most ludicrous gameplay that couldn't be found in any other open world game. Though sadly, as we get closer to the present day, cheats would become significantly less frequent with each new title. This decline could be traced back to sometime between the 7th and 8th console generation. With the advent of trophies and achievements, gamers were discouraged to use cheat codes since they could flag game saves and disable unlocking said new feature. Plus, the growing complexity of newer games makes the effects of cheats less predictable with even less time for developers to test them. So many studios began opting to not include cheats to prevent possible game-breaking bugs. Or in the worst case scenario, studios would still create cheats except sell them separately in the form of paid downloadable content. Even Saints Row, a series that used to set the standard for how epic cheats could be, resorted to selling basic cheat packs before straight up not having them in the recent reboot. There are some studios who haven't fully given up on cheats, but they're typically for games aimed at younger players, or they just don't offer the same creative options. At the end of the day, we can only hope that cheat codes make a return and we'll be able to enjoy that piece of magic that's been missing from gaming for so long. And finally, at number 1, we have split screen and couch co-op. If there's anything that made your gaming experience twice as fun and special, it was playing in the same room with either friends or family. Local play was once an essential aspect of gaming, tracing back to the arcade and even the first home console. Since then, the features weaved its way through countless genres, but most notably tournament fighters, party games, and especially first-person shooters. 007 GoldenEye, Call of Duty, Halo, these games pioneered couch gaming throughout the late 90s and 2000s. And of course, once PSN and Xbox Live hit the scene, LAN play was only complemented by the ability for you and your friends to take on the entire world. Unfortunately, this peak in LAN play would be short-lived, followed by the feature being nearly abandoned. With the rapid rise in gamers playing online, studios soon realized it was less necessary to develop local play and instead focus their resources elsewhere. This decline would start off subtle enough until the release of Halo 5 Guardians in 2015. The latest release from a series known for its split screen didn't have the feature. Then 7 years later, after 343 promised split screen would return for Halo Infinite, announced its cancellation. But Halo wouldn't be the only example. From 2015 and onwards, series which used to offer the feature either stopped or limited split screen to specific offline game modes. Now in the present day, you're lucky if a handful of games release each year which offers LAN play for 2 or more players. It's just ridiculous to think that any place where 2 or more gamers live together, they have no choice but to buy multiple copies and consoles if they want to play in the same room. And as fun as playing online with friends can be, it can't capture the same magic of inviting over some homies and having an all-night gaming session. Some of my all-time favorite gaming memories come from those pizza-fueled nights, fighting to stay conscious and just having some great fun. We can at least be thankful that Nintendo has attempted to keep couch co-op alive through their party titles, but it's certain that split screen will never capture its old glory. And there you have the top 5 missing features from modern gaming. It's certainly an exceptional time to be a gamer with boundless opportunities to escape the mundane life, though it's undeniable that some of the magic has been lost along the way, and it's unclear if we'll ever see it fully return. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If there's a piece of modern gaming that you feel is missing or can relate to any of the features mentioned on this list, please feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And before ending today's video, I'd like to give a special thanks to my Patreon sponsors: John, Sam Just, Delta, Big G, Gabriel Snyder, Fluffy Tail, Pokedex, David Snoopy, and EMC Mend. Like always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Why are you filming this?